Hello and welcome to another episode of DCU Daily. And today we're talking about Paradise Lost, and more specifically, Wonder Woman. That's where we'll start. Then we'll dive a little bit deeper into Paradise Lost. What this series may look like, who should be playing potentially some of the more well-known characters from the Wonder Woman pantheon, the Rogues Gallery, and we'll get into that. But to start off, there was a rumor going around recently that Elizabeth Debicki might be considered to play the new Wonder Woman in the DCU. And that's something that certainly piqued my interest because I'm like, look, she's, not only an amazing actress, I think she has the look, she can do the physicality part of it. Like a Gal Gadot, for years, I think when they cast her, people were like, really? Don't we want somebody who's kind of get bulked up? But I'm like, once you saw her in Batman versus Superman and then later on in her own standalone Wonder Woman movie, she was able to pull it off. So why not, Elizabeth Debicki? So that's where we're gonna start. And to talk about that, I've got, as always, with me, John. How are you doing today?
Pretty good. But yeah, I saw that and I'm like, that sounds kind of fake. A little bit with Elizabeth Debicki, and it turns out that it was James, even though she worked with him on, Guardians 2 and 3. He's like, yeah, this is a load of bull honky, so don't believe it in the slightest. Um, and the thing I appreciate about James Gunn, maybe he uses his social media too much, maybe he doesn't. I don't know. It depends on the person. But I do like how he kind of just pretty much always calls out BS because he's just as sick of it as the rest of us. So he's like, you know what? No, I'm sick of these sites being like, hey, this is a whole bunch of crapola. So, I mean, he had a whole like war on Twitter with Grace Randolph a couple years ago. So that was, I mean, like,
Yeah,
he hates it as just as much as everybody else. So,
yeah.
she would be a good choice. Gunn has worked with her before, and he tends to use kind of the
Guardians of the
same actors
Galaxy.
over and over again.
Yeah, Volume
So,
2, Volume 3. I mean,
um,
it's
yeah,
yeah.
I mean,
What do you think if, like, let's just say, because part of the rumor, unsubstantiated it may be, and of course James Gunn debunked it. I mean, he did say, look, they're making this stuff up, but he does love working with Elizabeth Debicki, and he has done so in 2 of his Guardians movies. He hadn't even thought about it. I mean, that might just be because they haven't really done much development, work on that Paradise Lost series, but part of this rumor was that, she would make her first appearance in Paradise Lost, which is a little weird to consider because that show is meant to take place, what, like 1,000, 10,000 years in the past? So, I guess it depends on just how timeless and just how old you wanna make what Wonder Woman feel like in the DCU, because in the world of the DCEU, she first steps out in the world in, the era of World War One. I guess, but how long she had been around before then, we don't know. She's meant to be like this demigod, right? Like in the new version of her origin
yeah,
story, that's generally the most popular one to be adopted. We don't know which direction they're gonna go with, but they didn't really hint at whether they were gonna have a Wonder Woman in the show when they first announced the show as part of the larger slate announcement. So all they said was this is gonna be like a Game of Thrones of DC. So let's just suppose that, Elizabeth Debicki does end up getting considered for the role, and James Gunn, course, having worked with her already in the past, he does end up picking her for the job. Would you think that would be a good fit? Like, what would your opinion be? I mean, is
um,
she a good fit for the role?
just like Gal
Diana
Gadot,
Prince.
I think she needs to bulk up a little bit. She's tad too skinny a little bit, but just for this character, like, not saying that's like in general a bad thing. Just I feel like I know that a lot of people have said, like, well, these characters have super strength. They don't really need to be buff because they have the strength already. So they don't. But like the thing is, movies and comics are a very visual medium. So like, even though they have that strength, it's better to like show it like on their body, like, hey, they can actually lift a car because, well, look how muscular they are, kind of thing. Even though, yeah, the
Right,
characters don't technically need it, it's nicer to have that. So she would need to like bulk up a little bit and then maybe dye her hair. But like outside of that, I sorry, I just can't see a blonde Wonder Woman unless it's an Elseworld story. So as long as she does those two things, I think she should be fine. Like I think she could be a good role. Um, she could be good for the role. I think she's like 6'3", 6'2" or something. She's really
Yeah,
fucking tall. So I definitely think that could be like sort of like an intimidation factor sort of thing.
yeah. I
But there's
mean,
also like benefit to having a smaller
yeah.
Wonder Woman because usually smaller people tend to have like really good reflexes because they don't have to move around such a big body all the time. So I don't know, it all kind of depends. But I think
Yeah,
she
but
could
I mean, you're talking
pull it off.
like it's almost like, when it comes to a movie, some of that stuff doesn't matter because it's like they can film around those things. It's like,
Yeah.
yes, it helps, but like, you can always bring in a stunt person to take over for a certain scene. You can, we were talking about it before the show. I mean, like, Tom Cruise played Jack Reacher for 2 movies, and I know he's really not the book version of Jack Reacher. That's really what Alan
Yeah.
Ritchson is. Understandable, but he pulled it off, and Tom Cruise has made a career out of playing roles that you would otherwise imagine, somebody who much bigger in size. Like he does a lot of action, and he's not a really big dude. Like and of course I
Don't
mentioned
tell him
before,
that.
like yeah, say again.
Don't tell him that. He kind of has an
Oh,
upper
well, I mean,
nothing to say though, but
he's still one of the highest earning, biggest, movie stars, if not one of the last few movie stars in Hollywood today. There's nothing more that can be said about him than the legacy that he's leaving behind. And I'm sure one day when he does retire, whenever that is. But as far as Wonder Woman goes, like you look at Gal Gadot, right? When she was in Fast and Furious 6, you see her in that movie and you're like, "Really? That's what you're gonna can she pull it off?" And then look, she shows up to the set, you see those fight sequences, and we know that Zack Snyder, mentioned it, multiple times. Of course, Patty Jenkins talked about it that, Gal Gadot did a lot of that action stuff on set herself. I mean, obviously not everything. They did have stunt doubles, they had digital stunt doubles, stuff like that, but she did a lot of the action choreography, and she can pull off a lot of that just the look on, the emotions, the physicality of the role. She can, uh, she did a lot of that work herself, and she pulled it off. I mean, clearly she bulked up, which is exactly what you wanted. And
no,
so if I was looking at that as an example, I think Elizabeth Debicki could pull it off because, like, she's yes, the hair is one thing, and then also I mean, Gal Gadot just has a very Mediterranean accent, which for the Amazonians, I guess it works out in a way, but then everybody else had to sort of try to speak in that, which is like people have made fun of that, how that worked, but I mean, I'm sure Elizabeth Debicki doesn't have any problems, adopting to an accent. Like
yeah.
she's, I mean, one of the most talented actresses out there. I'm sure she can pull it off. As far as my opinion on it, I'm sure, like based on what you have seen me already mention, I think she could be a great fit
Oh yeah, I think
because
she could
certainly as
be fantastic.
yeah, yeah, I mean, as talent, as a talented actor, you can't go wrong bringing her onto the project. It's like Vanessa Kirby as the Invisible Woman. Like you wouldn't necessarily think of her as the first choice, but she's now going to be part of the MCU, and I think like between her and Vanessa Kirby and Elizabeth Debicki, they've had some career parallels, especially recently. They're both incredibly talented. Have they've got a great background in terms of the resume they've already put together, but they've not shied away from doing these big franchise movies. And in the case of Elizabeth Debicki, she's already worked on a movie with Warner Brothers before. She was in Tenet, so the Christopher Nolan movie. So hey, it wouldn't be the first time that she works on the Warner's lot if she does get cast in the role of Wonder Woman. Having said that, let's talk about Paradise Lost for a second here. Now, like, Paradise Lost is a show that James Gunn originally introduced when he introduced the rest of that whole slate. And it's a show that Peter Safran, I think, also was the one who mentioned, like, look, this is going to be like the Game of Thrones of the DCU. And that's a high bar, obviously, because Game of Thrones is probably one of, if not the biggest TV show of all time. So, with that in mind, I know that you put together a list of actors you would want to play. I think we were like five of the more popular characters from the
Yeah.
world of Wonder Woman. Of course, we already talked about Wonder Woman potentially being cast, and maybe Elizabeth Debicki is the person to play her. But in the absence of Diana Prince from this prequel series, what other characters do you have in mind, and then who would you like to have play those characters?
Yeah. So I feel like the most obvious choice to have because she's shown to be, thousands upon thousands of years. I don't know what the age of Wonder Woman is. It kind of depends on the age, who's writing her. It all depends on how old she
I
actually
mean, it's
is.
like she's almost like Thor, right? Like, he's been around for thousands
So
of years, right?
I don't
Like,
know if they're gonna have her in the show. Maybe they'll have her as like a kid or something, or like they're getting ready to like get it on, and then she gets born. But I don't think they're gonna have her because I mean the thing is, why would you have like what you declare as like a prequel show, but then also have Wonder Woman? It's either like I feel like you have to have one or the other. Like it's either do something Wonder
yeah.
Woman related or do something that's Wonder Woman adjacent, but like not have her in it. So, I feel like the most obvious one I feel the one that's definitely gonna be there is Hippolyta. Hippolyta is definitely gonna be there. Now, I think Connie Nielsen did a really good job.
Yeah,
I thought
who's for anybody who doesn't know, she's the second one from the right in that picture. So,
yes.
yeah,
So
great.
I think she did a really good job. She showed, very strong leadership, but also a strong warrior. I think she did the role very well. But in terms of, obviously she wasn't one of the 3 actresses that James Gunn chose to carry on to the new DCU, even though I wouldn't mind seeing her
Although,
again.
I mean, Dizzy he hasn't said it specifically. For all we know,
Yeah,
that
I
might
mean,
just
obviously, this is
yeah,
all up in the air, similar to
right.
with the Swamp Thing one. It's like there's gonna probably be some usual suspects. Hippolyta's probably the one that's definitely gonna show up, kinda like how Alec Holland is definitely gonna show up in Swamp Thing because it's probably gonna be an origin story. So Hippolyta is gonna show up here, and I think someone who has been fan cast as Wonder Woman for back in the late 90s and early 2000s when they were trying to get a movie off the ground, a big name that was rolling around now that she's older, I think one would fit for Hippolyta would be like Lucy Lawless. She she's
Hey,
the
Xena the
warrior
warrior
princess.
princess. Yeah, yeah.
And because of that role, people saw her as Wonder Woman for years. She was because I know that Joel Silver tried to produce a movie back in like the late 90s. I think like Courtney Cox and Sandra Bullock were also like names back then. But I feel like she would have been perfect as Wonder Woman in the 90s. But now she's older. I wouldn't say she's old. She's like middle
I
aged.
mean, look,
But
she's
like,
she's aging like fine wine, right?
yeah,
Like,
like
it's
exactly. Like she's technically aged in what is considered, aged in Hollywood standards, even though she's can knock it out of the park still. I
yep.
mean, her on Ash versus the Evil Dead, she was fucking fantastic. I love that show. She was hilarious and badass, and I think honestly, she would be perfect. Like she was one. She everyone wanted her as Wonder Woman. Now,
I mean,
unfortunately,
Parks
she's a
and
little
Rec, and
I
she
mean,
was also in
honestly, she could still fucking play Wonder Woman. Like,
she
honestly, I would love to see
I
it,
would
but
yeah.
I know after like the age of 35 in Hollywood, now you're like an old maid. So like th- it's unfortunate, but that's how, societally
Yeah.
it works, unfortunately.
I mean,
So
yeah, it's I don't know if yeah,
I would love
I
to
hear
see
you.
her as Hippolyta. I think she definitely has the obviously the badassery, the fight choreography, all that. She's done that
Yeah.
before. But I feel like she definitely has the vibe of someone who can walk into a room and everyone would to look for her for leadership kind of
Oh,
thing.
I mean,
Like
I don't even
she
think you have to worry
can
about that.
no,
Yeah,
exactly. She would
yeah,
do that flawlessly, like how she was.
yeah,
Like again, the biggest thing I've seen her from is Ash versus the Evil Dead,
yeah.
and she definitely always took the reign, always took leadership, was always making the decisions, and she did it flawlessly. So I think Lucy Lawless, unfortunately, has quote unquote aged out of Wonder Woman. So might as well make her just as badass mother. So fuck it, Lucy Lawless would be
And
awesome.
look, for all we know, if Diane Prince is not in this show, if Wonder Woman's not in the show, then Hippolyta might be the main character. She may be the
Yeah,
lead or one of the leads anyway. So, I mean, Lucy Lawless can still pull it off. I mean, she even back in the early 2000s, like I loved her in Battlestar Galactica. She was in, the Ronald D. Moore Battlestar Galactica, one of the greatest sci-fi shows of all time. And yeah, I mean, Parks and Rec, Ash, Evil Dead. It's she's her career is, just keeps going and go and she keeps knocking it out of the park. You're right. She would be great for any role in Paradise Lost. But
Yeah,
if she can be Hippolyta, I think, like, especially when you think of, like, okay, so Connie Nielsen has played the role now, you kinda it's you gotta play the motherly figure, then you also wanna be because, for example, if they start this as a prequel and then they eventually move
you know.
forward and now we get a Wonder Woman and you wanna share screen with, let's say, an Elizabeth Debicki as Diana Prince, Lucy Lawless can pull it off. She can totally pull off, like, you can believe that, and I
Oh
agree
yeah,
with you there.
most
Great pick.
definitely. But yeah, so Lucy Lawless would probably be my number one. But if I had to choose somebody else, I do have two other choices. I think Gillian Anderson could also do it really well. She was recently, I don't know if they were on the same seasons, but she was on The Crown, which Elizabeth Debicki was in. So there's
I don't
that
know if they
connection.
were. That's a good
I don't think they
question.
were. I don't think they
Yeah,
were. Um, but yeah, Gillian Anderson is, known for. I mean, she played
yeah.
Margaret Thatcher, horrible
Of course.
leader. Um, but she's known for playing a leader, and she's again a
She's
badass lady.
Scully. Dana
Yeah,
Scully,
Scully. She was,
Detective Dana Scully, of course, yeah.
now I don't now Gillian Anderson, I don't think she's done like action from what I know. I mean, obviously she did do X-Files, but that was more like mystery, supernatural
Yeah.
police procedural.
I mean, she's
So
in
I don't know
Sex
if she's
Education
done
now, yeah,
yeah, I
you're
don't know
right,
if
it's not
she's
a lot of
done
act
like
yeah.
I don't know if she's done like action, but I feel like if they want to go with someone who's a little bit older and who doesn't do a lot of action, like Lucy Lawless would be like, okay, we want someone who can do action, awesome. But if you want more like someone who could do the political side and have it be more
I
like,
mean, one of the
you
best
know,
actresses still in the game.
yeah,
Yeah.
obvious. So if you want to go for someone that's more like political drama side with like maybe like some action here and there, then I think Gillian Anderson could definitely do it. But yeah, she would be great. And then finally for my last choice, if you want someone who's like more quote unquote exotic, I guess, um, I
I
would
don't know
pick
if that's
Monica.
I mean, it's
Quote unquote, because I know like
okay.
Gal Gadot is like
I
Middle
mean,
Eastern, so
yeah.
like I know like like if you don't want to go with someone who's white, then I would say Monica Bellucci is, you know, hot
She
ass
would've
Italian.
she
Like
would've fit,
she
like, perfectly in the whole Gal Gadot version of the
Yeah,
Amazons, for sure, yeah.
I think, she is immensely talented. She, again, it's still incredibly beautiful, so you could definitely classify her as an Amazon, and I think she could pull that off flawlessly. So, I think she would do it flawlessly. She's, has done a little bit of action, not a ton, but, like, a little bit,
I
like,
mean, she was in a
enough.
James Bond movie, so, there was
Yeah,
some
well, she
action.
didn't really do much there, but, like, still, I
You know,
think,
I'm not that kind of action, but, there was action involved,
yeah, like, okay, fine, sure, but yeah, I think, like,
I mean, look,
someone
they did say this is gonna be the Game of Thrones of the DCU, right? So, I mean, there's probably some
I
TVMA
hope
stuff in
not, that's
there.
just such a lame thing to do, like, if I wanna watch the Wonder Woman porn parody, I will, like, I don't need to fucking watch Paradise Lost for that.
I'm just saying, going off of what they described it as,
As long as
and
we
g
don't get
cons yeah,
incest, we're fine.
yeah.
But but yeah, she has done action. I mean, she did do the great movie, Shoot 'Em Up. I mean, speaking of sex, that has one of the best shootouts of all time because there was literally a shootout during a sex scene. So that was fucking
That's gotta be
awesome.
intense, yeah.
Yeah, it was fucking intense. Okay, I'll show myself out. Anyway, but I think Monica Bellucci, if you want someone more on the beauty side, but who's also done some good drama, some good action, Monica Bellucci's your gal. But if I had to pick, I would pick Lucy Lawless because I think she would just get everything.
I think
But yeah,
yeah.
I think
No,
all
I think
three of
you're
them
right.
do a flawless job. So you got the warrior, you got the politician, and you got the beauty. So whatever you want to go for, they can nail each of those
I mean,
aspects.
and to be honest, like Lucy Lawless kind of checks all 3 boxes.
Yeah.
And as far as the physicality side of it goes, like being able to pull off the action, and not just being able to pull off the action, like looking like she can kick your ass. You know
Yeah.
that Lucy Lawless can probably kick your ass. Like, it doesn't like that
Oh, yeah,
doesn't matter if
easily.
she's playing a character or she's just being herself. She will kick your ass. Like, and I think that's the kind of casting that you would wanna have in this case.
Like a mother, like daughter sort of thing. I could definitely, yeah.
Exactly. And I think in that sense, like, Lucy Lawless is, like, a better fit than Monica Bellucci and Gillian Anderson, because like you said, like, Gillian Anderson hasn't quite done a lot of that, action, and Adam that's never
Yeah,
really been her forte. So I don't know if she can really pull that off, because it's not just, like, the actual moves. Obviously, you'll have stunt, you know, team there to help you out, and you don't
yeah.
have to do the action choreography yourself, but you still have to be able to sort of, like, look the part and be able to pose the part, and also there will be some parts of that performance where you will have to be the one on screen pulling it off, and she can do it. I think Lucy Lawless would be perfect. So
Oh, yeah.
yeah, I mean,
I think
let's talk
all
about
3
other
can
characters.
do
Yeah,
certain things very well, but I think Lucy Lawless could definitely do all 3. But, another one is Antiope. She was the general, I believe she's the general of, like, the Amazon army, and she was played by Robin Wright in the DCEU. So I don't know if they wanna, like, immediately do that character again or they wanna stick with somebody else
yeah. She's on,
far
like, the
right.
far right of this image.
Um,
She Spoiler
so
alert, her character passes away in the first Wonder Woman movie. She kinda
yeah,
sacrifices herself to save Diana
yeah,
in
and then I
the
think
battle on the beach,
I
so
don't know if
for the
Antiope was the
Germans.
general. She was like I think she was like the right-hand man of
She
Hippolyta.
Right, the right hand, yeah, she
Um,
was basically the lead general, or yeah, like you said, like,
yeah,
for
I don't know the
Hippolyta.
specifics. I know people are probably gonna
Yeah,
fucking yell at me in the comments. They're like, "No, she was actually this." And it's been a while since I've seen the movie. I apologize. So, but anyway, to casting, I think someone who can nail that sort of like stone cold badassery, because Lucy Lawless can bring in a badassery, but she can also bring like a twinge of like comedy and like kind of kindness that I think Hippolyta has. Yeah, she's stoic and a leader, but I think she kinda has, like, that sort of, like, loving, nurture, motherly sort of thing. Antiope doesn't fucking deal with that shit. She's like, "Nah, fuck that. I gotta command an army." So I think someone who could do that really well, Uma Thurman, definitely. I think she
yeah.
would
She can
be
definitely command an army. That's a good way
yeah.
to put it.
So
Yeah,
she would definitely, nail the role. Like again, like Kill Bill. Like I know that's like the obvious thing, but like Kill
yeah,
Bill is sort of like that was like, her role and I think she fits into that sort of older thing. I don't think she was like the general quote unquote in but I know she was like part of the army and so I feel like she could definitely not saying she's like oh, she can't be human type of thing. But Uma Thurman has done a lot of different roles for a lot of different things, but I feel like sh what Lucy Lawless kinda has, like, a little bit of both, or even Gillian Anderson or Monica Bellucci. I think Uma Thurman can go for, like, straight on, like, I will, like, kill you without blinking an eye sort of thing, and I think
right.
that's what Antiope kind of, like, does the best,
I
and I think
mean,
Uma Thurman can
she
fucking
was
do that
Poison
really well.
Ivy, so
We don't talk about that. So,
I mean, hey, look,
um
I'm just saying it wasn't half bad a performance. I know that it's kinda cheesy. Um,
no, there she is
I
with Ben Affleck,
personally
so,
That's one of my favorite, Uma Thurman movies, but that I'm biased towards Batman and Robin because it's just I've always, like, it's such a
yeah,
bad movie, but it's so much fun to watch.
yeah, I think, like,
So yeah.
you know what? Michael B. Jordan got his Marvel redemption, Chris Evans got his Marvel redemption. I think Uma Thurman deserves her DC redemption. I'm just saying,
Yeah. I mean,
I
and
feel like
her career has also taken a really, like, good turn for the better, and, like, there was a period where she sort of, like, I don't know if it was by choice, she just wasn't doing a lot, and it just felt like, she was just out of sight, out of mind, and but in the recent years, but she's just picked it up, like, in peak TV era, Uma Thurman's career is about as hot as it's ever been, like,
yeah,
back in the '90s,
no
she
shame.
was
I mean, what?
one of the highest profile, and now, like, she's yeah, you could see her in so many things. I mean, Pulp Fiction, of course, is still one of the classics, but she's back to doing oh, there. See, there it is. There's the was it Ivy? I was like, it's yeah.
12,000,000.
Oh my
Never leave the cave without it.
right. The bad credit card. Yeah.
Don't get us started on the
Uh,
bad credit card, but there yeah, I mean,
wasn't it like a Mastercard too? That's why because basically a product placement for Mastercard.
that
Never
wouldn't
leave
shock
that.
me. That wouldn't
No, because
fly.
I remember it was specifically because this, that movie is basically. Remember, was Joel Schumacher was like, "Yeah, guys, we're not doing a movie, we're doing a commercial. We're
This is a
selling
toy
toys."
commercial, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think she could definitely do that well. And then in terms of someone else who could do the role really well, someone who I think can do she has done, like, more, like, emotional performances, like but I feel like someone who can, like, get shit done, be cold as fuck, I think Rachel Weisz can, like, definitely do that. Dead Ringers was, something I didn't see a lot of that, but, like, she definitely had that, like, 2 sides of that coin in terms of, like, stone cold sort of character, so, I think Rachel Weisz could be a really good Antiope. Because I just feel like well, again, both actresses that I have here have good range, but I just feel like both do like stone cold really well, and I feel like you have to have that like they will fuck you up no matter what, like kind of thing. And I feel like someone who can just do the coldness of cold, and I think both of these actresses can do that really well. Rachel
I
Weisz,
mean, she was already in
obviously,
Black Widow, so, like, she
yeah.
played, I
Yeah,
forget the
that
name,
was
yeah,
more like an
yeah,
even performance, but yeah, again, stone cold killer
right.
type of thing. Again, I totally blocked out every other like when I'm doing these fan casts, I block out every other role they've done because I just like okay, I'm just looking at the actress like how would they do? Like I know they've done other stuff in the past, maybe they're with Marvel, maybe they've done DC, all that, but I just feel like bam, they would definitely do this type of role really well. But yeah, I don't have three choices. I only have two because Antiope I feel was like a little bit harder to cast because again, you got to get someone who's like just cold as ice. Hey, so Batman and Robin. Okay, never mind.
Yeah,
Anyway,
no, I
so,
got the reference, Yeah, no, that's
bad
fine.
joke. I apologize. Anyway,
It's,
but yeah,
what was
so
the thing? He's like,
what killed the
where's the
dinosaurs?
Iceman?"
The ice
And he's like,
age.
"Where's the Ice," he's like, "Maybe he's
The
hibernating." He
Iceman
goes, "The"
cometh.
comments. There was some, like, really, like, out of nowhere, like, okay. Like, you look back at it in the moment, I didn't I've watched that movie back, like, growing up, like, almost every year I watch it at least once, and it just, like, gets you get an ap you have you develop an appreciation for it is what I'll say.
I don't know about that, but
Um,
sure.
well, okay, that's just my opinion, I guess, anyway, moving on, I guess, right? Let's
But yeah, let's move on to another fan favorite character who hasn't had a proper live action adaptation, but Nubia. She was Diana's fraternal twin in the comics, but she's also not been that, depending on the continuity. So you can go for that and not have her show up and be sort of like, Diana's best friend, not just like save the character for when you introduce Diana if you ever do. I think that could be interesting, like, someone maybe who was best friends with Diana and then would later on become, like, her rival, like, kinda how she was, not in, like, a bad sense, but in sort of like a friendly rival, maybe would grow into, like, an actual bitter rivalry type of thing. You could do that, or you could just have her as yet another Amazon that would show up. Either way, I'm doing the latter, like, I just wanted to grab as many Amazons as I could that would, like, work, and she's kind of a fan favorite, so the first one I have, it definitely fits into more of the older thing I was going for with Hippolyta Antiope. I picked Regina King because Regina King was in Watchmen, so she has worked under DC before. Um, so I think she's worked with that. Obviously, she's done like more like drama than like action, but I think Regina King could I mean, she's great. She's extraordinarily talented. So, unfortunately, she doesn't have that sort of I know that she was that character in Watchmen. I don't remember the character's name, but where she was sort of that like, she was a vigilante, but I don't know how much of like action like was done there. But again, she's shown that she has done, comic book stuff in the past. I try to, differentiate because especially with the fact I did not like Watchmen. But but yeah, Regina King, I think she would
I mean,
definitely
she's also, like, good behind the camera. She can direct as well. I would imagine if she was involved in a project, she might even direct a few episodes
Oh,
herself.
yeah, that
Like,
would be
yeah.
awesome. I didn't realize that, but yeah, sure, go for it. But I think she could definitely bring, like, a sort of that, you know, again, sort of like the balance, more of a balanced Amazon where, like, being stone cold warrior, but also being, like, have a bit of, like, quote, unquote, "humanity" towards her. So I think she could definitely do that really well, and if we're doing it more so in regards to, like, an older Amazon, that would fit into more Hippolyta and Antiope, then that's who I would do that, and I would do Regina King. If you wanna go with someone who's a little bit younger, sort of like one of, like, the people who is one of the Amazons who is commanded by Antiope, I think, and someone who was a Gun mainstay for a while, I would say Zoe Saldana. I think she could definitely, again, she's got the blockbuster, she got the comic book, she got the action, she's got everything in terms of that character. She's a little bit on the thinner side, but I think because Nubia, I feel like is one of those characters that's got to be like really fucking big,
Like,
like,
okay.
and
I
so I
can I
feel
can
like
see,
she would
yeah.
definitely have to. I feel like she would have to definitely buff up a little bit more, but from an acting standpoint and an action standpoint, I think she could easily fucking do it. Like she's awesome. She was great as Gamora. She was great as,
I mean, this show here that's on the screen, Special Ops Lioness,
what's her
she
character
was
from
amazing in that
Avatar?
show.
What was
You
her
gotta
character
check
from
that out on Paramount Plus.
um
Which other
what was her
movie?
character from Avatar?
Oh,
Neytiri? Was that
Neytiri,
it?
Neytiri. Yeah,
Yeah,
Neytiri,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah, she was, even though those movies aren't
I mean, she still
really all that
is. There's
great.
still, like, 4 more movies to come. Yeah, that
Yeah,
franchise is never ending.
yeah. Uh Anyway,
I mean,
um,
yeah.
but, like, she's kind of out of the 3 that I chose, I think she's the most well-rounded out of all of these. Because Regina King, yes, she worked on Watchmen, but she didn't do, like, a ton of action from what I am aware of, but Zoe Saldana has done a shit ton of action, like, she was also I think she was
She
in that
did all
movie.
the motion capture for the Neytiri character too.
Yeah,
Like,
and I
she's doing
feel
all that
like
stuff.
she also was she in that movie
Performance capture,
Columbiana,
they call
I
it.
think?
Mhm.
I think she was in that movie Columbiana where she played like a
She was. That was one of her
hitman,
big,
yeah.
like, early ones that really,
Yeah,
like, that was the
so
big
again,
action,
from
like,
the beginning, she's been there and she's extremely talented. She's done like so much, like ranging from drama to, Avatar and fun, Guardians of the Galaxy. So she's done so much. So I feel like this is definitely she probably wouldn't be my favorite choice. I feel like my next choice would probably be my personal favorite, but I think she's the most well-rounded. So in terms of my next choice, I think this will be my personal favorite. Again, someone a bit on the younger side, not going for that older thing I was going for before. But I think Naomi Harris could also be a really good Nubia. Again, I think she would have to like bulk up a little bit. But again, she was Miss Eve Moneypenny in James Bond. She again has done that action before. Even though she did resign from action after, Skyfall, but I think,
yeah.
I think she's, like, capable, can handle herself, and I feel like can definitely bring, um, stone cold killer type of thing, but also, again, that
Yeah, there's
balance,
a
she's
softer
done.
side to her too. Yeah, you could
Yeah, and I feel like she could definitely bring in, the more, like, drama, side to it, like, political side. I think Naomi Harris can go there. Not saying Zoe Saldana can't, again, very good actress, but I feel like I just personally, I think Naomi Harris is a little bit of a better actress than Zoe Saldana because I feel like she has a little bit more of a range. But again, I mean, I picked them.
uh,
Obviously, I love them and
it's
I think they're talented, but I feel
you
like
can't go wrong with either, like,
you can't go
yeah,
wrong with all three of them. They're all
exactly.
extremely accomplished actresses. They all have done enough that would warrant this sort of role. I think the Zoe Saldana the most in terms of action, but I think all 3 are fantastic, and I think all 3 could
Yeah.
definitely offer something a little bit different, obviously, as different people would from an acting
Yeah,
standpoint, so I
look,
think
the other
that,
thing is,
yeah.
it's ironic that 2 of your picks, both Naomi Harris and Zoe Saldana, were part of, at one point or another, the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise. I think Zoe Saldana was like in like maybe the one of the first, if maybe the first movie, and then Naomi Harris like plays Calypso like in the I think the second or the third one, right?
It's
Um,
been a while since I've watched
so
them, but I'll take your
like
word for it.
no, I'm serious. Like they were both in that like that's the. I mean, they were. I don't think they were in the same movie, but they were in that franchise at large, which is great. You know, they've both been around for a very long time, much like Regina
Yeah,
King. And between the three of them, you can, like you said, you can't go wrong. You can't go wrong with talent. And all three of these women have got a stacked resume where they've done action, they've done drama. I mean, you add like a Lucy Lawless or a Gillian Anderson and Monica Bellucci, then you have a Uma Thurman and Rachel Weisz, then you have a Regina King, Zoe Saldana, or Naomi Harris. Those three, you're talking that's Game of Thrones level casting.
yeah,
Like that right
exactly,
there is
because
already,
yeah.
you've got a lot of your bases covered.
I was
And
thinking of
yeah.
action, but I was also thinking of, like, the more, like, political drama I think they'll also go for because there's only so much action you can, like, showcase because, like, unless people invade Themyscira, there's not really gonna be a ton of
Yeah,
action
it will there'll be a lot of
because
politics. Right.
yeah, a
See,
lot
there you
of
go. That's
political
the
stuff.
picture of the Pirates of the
Okay.
Caribbean.
Okay, now that's starting to
See,
come back to
it's
me now a little bit. I don't
come
think I
back to
realized
yeah.
that was Naomi Harris, that's probably why.
Yeah. She ends up
And
becoming like she basically becomes a Megazord at the end. She becomes like you have to whisper in her ear like Calypso, and then like she
the
becomes the
next
whole.
picture showed, her with the man that changed the hierarchy of the DC universe. Yeah, very
Yeah,
nice.
supposedly yes. That I forget what this was the one. This was the what was it called? Rampage. Yeah. I mean, a big
Yeah,
action
the
movie.
gorilla movie, yeah.
Yeah. Yep. I
One
mean,
of the few
look at
again,
that.
another
She's been around
video
since the
game
90s.
adaptation that didn't
Yeah.
totally suck from what I've heard. But yeah, I think she would God, she was great. So, I feel like she could definitely all 3 of them can nail it really well. The next Amazon I have is Artemis of Bana Magdal, not Artemis Croc. So Young Justice fans don't get excited. Different Artemis. But first one again, James Gunn mainstay and someone who I already recommended for The Authority, but
By the
Karen
way,
Gillan. Oh
okay,
shit.
hold on. Before we get into it, I did wanna
Okay.
mention Artemis has been played on screen before once by Anne Wolfe in the Wonder Woman movie in
Yeah, but it was
2017.
like kind of not really the character.
Background character, didn't really get I don't even know if she had any lines, but unlike Nubia, who we haven't seen in live action before, of course, Hippolyta and Antiope we have seen. They were prominently featured in every iteration of the Wonder Woman franchise and the DCEU. And Wolf only, brief appearance, and so the character really didn't get a ton of
Yeah.
like room to breathe. I guess before we go into it, I just wanted to know like as a character that is not as well known because you gave us a bit of a summary for who Nubia is. Who is Artemis in the Wonder Woman lore?
Yeah, Artemis is sort of like again, she's kind of has trouble with authority. Like she is a short temper, kind of like doesn't give a fuck about anything. She's like obviously a great warrior, but she's like one of those characters that like could be better if she just like fucking shut the fuck up and listen, like kind of thing. Like if she was just like actually um just, like, if she actually, like, listened to people and she would actually, like, try to iron out, like, a lot of the stuff that she's flawed in, I think she would be, like, an even better warrior, but the fact that, like, she's just so no nonsense and, like, fucking hates everybody and, like, doesn't give a shit, like, yeah, she's sort of like the best thing I could come up with is, like, she's sort of like the flawed Wonder Woman type of thing, if, like, Wonder Woman's, like, this flawless, amazing character. I know she isn't, but, like, she like, Artemis goes through, like, a lot of shit, like, I remember during the run for Red Hood and the Outlaws, that was, like, the main thing I know of the character. She was really good in that. The fucking sexual tension between her and Jason Todd, you can fucking cut with a knife. But I feel like she definitely had like a lot of intrigue to this character because she definitely brought a lot of like more like kind of not necessarily like a who I am sort of thing, but like someone who like was I don't know if she was exiled or left the Amazons, but she was like, "Fuck this! I don't want to deal with this hierarchy bullshit anymore." But not necessarily a villain. She's like kind of is a hero, but kind of ranges into anti-hero a little bit. But like she's kind of more like the rougher, tougher, gruffer. like sort of like visceral Amazon type of thing, not necessarily like stoic and cold like in a lot of the other characters that I mentioned, but like sort of like a fuck all attitude. But like, I don't give a fuck about this Amazonian politic bullshit. I just want to fight people and not have to worry about anything. So I
I feel
feel
like
like,
you're describing like Starbuck, from Battlestar Galactica. That's
sure,
who
again,
which
I haven't watched the show.
Katie Sackhoff, like, became famous. That's the role that, made her famous, and, that was a character where, like, Starbuck was very much doesn't wanna go through any red tape. She just wants to get the job done. She wants to kick some ass. She wants to, like, beat the bad guys and
Yeah,
win the day without having to worry about, like, the politics. She was not really big into, all the emotional side of things. But yes, okay, so I'm getting a sense of this is a flawed character, and of course, physically, she very much has a lot of the same attributes as Wonder Woman.
yeah.
So who do you have in
Um,
mind for these for the I know you mentioned Karen
I
Gillan, so I guess
I
we'll
did
start there.
mention Karen Gillan. I think,
Yeah.
again, she just kind of fits into that perfectly. Again, when I did my whole, DCEU, like, what if I could do it? I had her as Artemis because I just feel like she's too perfect. She definitely has the intimidation factor. She has the range of, I know, like, Nebula is more like stone cold killer, but I feel like in a lot of her other roles, she's also
Well, I
kind
mean,
of,
by
I
the end of
know,
the movie, the 3rd Guardians movie, at least, you kinda get a sense of, like, there was a
like,
more of a
she's like
human side to
regained her
her.
humanity type of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think she definitely can do that, but as well as like, stuff like Gunpowder Milkshake was another one where she kind of, you know, like badassery kind of mowing through people type of thing. And, obviously Amy Pond of like doesn't get, just angry Scottish woman. Yeah, of course. So I think that all of that could, all of that feeds into, I think she would be a perfect Artemis. So, Lena Headey could also, I know Game of Thrones connection, but like she could also be a good Hippolyta or Antiope, I think.
I mean,
But
wasn't she gonna get her own spin-off show? Wasn't that, like, they shot the pilot, that was the one that she was gonna be leading, and then they just completely scrapped it, and then went with the House of the Dragon is what we ended up with, but Lena Headey
maybe,
was
I don't
gonna
know.
get, like, a big, I think that's I might be mi I don't think I am mistaking her for some another character. I definitely think she was one of the breakouts from the show. She's a fantastic actress, of course. I
Oh
wouldn't
yeah,
mind seeing her in anything, and I mean, and then again, if you really wanna deliver on the whole Game of Thrones premise, then that right there is about as close as you can get to it.
yeah. But Karen Gillan, I've talked about her before. I think she would be perfect for Artemis. So yeah. And then someone else I chose, my second choice, I picked more of a little bit older, not like older like Lucy Lawless or Antiope or anything like that, but a little bit like kind of, older according to Hollywood. But I think Jessica Chastain could also kind of bring
Dude, I
that.
don't know if you can even call her old, like, she's in the peak of her prime, like, it's
Again, I'm
I don't
thinking
I
of it from a Hollywood point of view, okay?
Yeah, but
She's
even then, I
older.
wouldn't say yeah. I guess what you mean,
She's
but
older than Karen
she's
Gillan, what I was
yeah.
trying to get
That's
with.
fair.
Yeah.
I guess she does lean old in terms of characters that she's cast in a little older than the ones maybe that than what Karen Gillan can usually ends up getting. I hear you.
Right.
it's a subtle difference, but I see what you mean. Yes.
But yeah, I think because usually Artemis is portrayed as someone who's younger. I know like they're all like thousands upon thousands of years old, but Artemis is someone who's like looks like someone who's in her like early 30s, which is what Karen Gillan is. Meanwhile, Jessica Chastain is looks older. So, but I think in terms of acting, I think she's played a whole range of roles, but again, she kind of has that like no nonsense leadership quality that you could bring into the Artemis character, like someone who's not like maybe she's has moved on from that I don't want to fucking deal with authority type shit, and she's moved on from that and she wants to like kind of maybe be better but still struggles with that, because she did that in like Zero Dark 30 and kind of thing, like someone who's like struggling with herself constantly, also DC connection, Michael Shannon, so that also helps.
Yeah,
Um,
General Zod,
General
one of the
Zod
greatest
fucking
villains put to screen.
fucking
I
playing
will
the guitar
find
in a
him. The whole yeah,
in a fucking
yes.
ascot. I don't even know what
Yeah.
this movie is.
Dude,
Um,
have you seen the Midnight Special with Michael Shannon? That's an underrated
um,
sci-fi movie.
I was gonna watch it, like, I wanted to see it so badly, and then I just never
Check
got
it
the
out.
chance.
It's
I know, I
recommended.
really want it's on the
Absolutely. I
list,
mean, yes. I mean, and
the
Jessica,
laundry
didn't we
list.
didn't we, cast Bryce Dallas Howard for a role in one of the other projects recently? And then we were thinking, I mean, of course, Bryce Dallas Howard and Jessica Chastain would get mistaken for each other all the time when they were younger. They basically looked alike. I mean, if they somehow
Yeah,
ended up in the DCU together, and one day the characters cross paths, there would be a little
it
moment
would
of like,
it would be like if Elijah Wood and, Daniel Radcliffe did a movie together,
dude,
which
yeah,
I want that to happen so badly,
yes.
like, not gonna lie,
I
man.
mean, maybe like if the new Wolverine indeed is Daniel Radcliffe, then maybe Elijah Wood finds his way in. Is he already in the? I don't know if he is in the MCU. Maybe there'll be an opportunity to take on a character there somehow. So,
I don't know,
um,
but yeah, Jessica Chastain, again, older than the character that is normally shown, like how Artemis is shown in the comics, quote unquote older than that. But I still think she could maybe someone who's a little bit more mature, a little bit wiser version of Artemis. Wow, that dye job, Jesus Christ.
what
But
where?
damn, fucking if you want to look like an orange, damn. They said I could be anything, and I decided on an orange. Anyway, um,
Yeah,
but yeah, Jessica Chastain I think could be really good. Last one I have kind of goes back to more of who I would see as Artemis and sort of like someone who's younger, kind of no nonsense. But I think Evan Rachel would be a really good Artemis. Again, kind of like she kind of plays those characters that kind of, she does have like that softer side, but it like kind of also has that like fuck all, I don't give a fuck what you think type of attitude. And oh my god, she was so fucking funny as Madonna in Weird
right.
the Al Yankovic.
Yeah.
She was
Yep.
so funny. So she could,
Hmm.
and I feel like there is a bit of Artemis where she's like has a bit of like a bit of dark comedy to her a little bit. So I definitely think she
Yeah.
could pull that off.
I mean, plus she's
Um,
been in an HBO show. She was on Westworld. Like, so she's got the she knows how to pull off these complex characters, and
yeah,
she's worked in the house of the home box office, right? So like
yeah.
yeah, she
Is it
she's
is
got the
Paradise
pedigree.
Lost going to Max or is it gonna be on HBO?
It's the same thing at this point. I'm pretty sure
Okay.
that means it's because I think at this point they've consolidated it to the point where like I'm pretty sure the Penguin show is gonna if you have traditional HBO, it will air at a certain time and then you can watch it on. I may be wrong,
Probably.
but I'm pretty sure that's where they're headed
That
with
wouldn't
this.
shock that wouldn't
Yeah,
shock me.
although it's weird, they still do have, like, the branding wise, you'll see Max Original, HBO. It's maybe it's more just, like, the way they allocate funds and how the shows are budgeted and paid for, but, yeah, I mean, look, Evan Rachel Wood, she played so many, varying characters in Westworld alone. I mean, she's got the range. She's got the
Yeah,
range.
yeah,
Like you said, if you're going for the softer, like not necessarily softer, but, like, you're going for somebody who's not gonna come across as like, she just wants to kick your ass, doesn't give a fuck. Like Gunpowder Milkshake. I mean, I guess even Karen Gillan, if you go with her, like, yeah, she can be in Doctor Who, but then she can also be in Gunpowder Milkshake. So a lot of
yeah,
these actors, they have that
yeah.
ability.
I've seen Evan Rachel Wood also as Batwoman. I know she could definitely do that really well. But I feel like Artemis she could also do. Karen Gillan and Evan Rachel Wood would be my 2 main. I mean, Karen Gillan, she's just so talented. Again,
I mean, looking at this
our
picture, I'm thinking she can
Doctor
probably
fan,
be in
so
like Jonah Hex. That just looks like they could make a Jonah Hex movie out of that.
as long as it's not the 2011 movie, then
No, 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 no,
so
no, that movie wasn't even I don't know, like, that movie was how long? It was, like, 80 minutes, it wasn't even long enough to be a real movie. Um, and I mean, hey, that was before Josh Brolin,
yeah,
got some real acting work to do in a comic book movie,
yeah,
the MCU, of course, well,
but
and also
yeah.
the X-Men movies, but anyway, I
Yeah, but,
digress.
he crossed over, like, it was funny, like, I'm surprised, a little bit of a sidetrack, but I remember when, because Ryan Reynolds constantly brings up Green Lantern to the point of annoyance,
Mhm.
um, but, it's funny how because I don't know if you've seen those. I think it's by BBC where they do those like verbal sparring matches between like actors. I know Ryan
Mm.
Reynolds and Josh Brolin in preparation for Deadpool 2 did one. It was really funny where they just spar like insults at each other. And like
I think I've seen a couple
obviously
of those on social. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I
That's
obviously,
funny.
like, Green Lantern was brought up because that's, like, apparently the fucking greatest mistake of Ryan Reynolds' career. It was not that bad. Like, calm down. It was not that bad, even though he acted more like Guy Gardner than Hal Jordan, but that's beside the point. But, like, calm down. I'm surprised that because Josh Brolin brought up Green Lantern. I'm surprised Ryan Reynolds didn't bring up Jonah Hex because both of those movies came out in 2011. Both of them were terrible DC comic book movies that came out in 2011, and they both then starred in Deadpool 2, so I'm surprised they didn't bring that up, and I thought that was definitely a missed opportunity. Ryan, come on now. Anyway, so moving on to our last Amazon, is Philippus. I think, she is also categorized as, like, the general of, the Amazon army. I think she was in the DCU at least, was after Antiope, so I think in the comics, she's more so known as the, general of, the
Yeah, she was
Amazonian
in
army.
the Zack Snyder Justice League as well. She
Yes,
was played
she
by
was. I did wanna
Anne
bring that up.
Ogbomo?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Anna Agbomo, I did wanna bring her up because, like, since she had a relatively small role, I wouldn't mind seeing her again because, I mean, she did a pretty good job, again, from the
yeah.
physicality point of view. So I think she could do it, and go her, like,
Just
talented
bring I
enough.
mean, yeah,
She's
she I
cool,
think it
so
translates across naturally. It's one of those characters that like the Jimmy Olsen character, they just sacrificed to the
yeah,
altar of the story, which they just didn't need it. I mean, it's also I think characters like these. One thing I've noticed, James Gunn is paying more attention to some of these supporting characters because they wanna tell a longer term story, and they're building for that from the start, whereas I think Zack Snyder never intended for his universe to go on for, like, 20 years or something like, what the MCU has turned into. Um,
yeah.
so they were willing to sacrifice some of those supporting characters early on, and it didn't matter because they didn't really think they would need them. Like, whereas I think James Gunn has made a habit so far based on Superman Legacy alone of casting actors for the long term. And so in that sense, yeah, I mean, I think Anne Obama would be a great fit.
She
That's the
deserves a
yeah,
second chance, I think,
yeah,
with her small role in the original films.
yeah.
So yeah, I think I have one really good casting and then two kind of not so great castings, but they were like the best ones that I could, come up with. So the first one, Philippus, the character I think in the comics is more so known as the general of the Amazonian army, as I said, rather than Antiope. I believe, again, if I get that wrong, feel free to yell at me in the comments. But um, but she's also the lover of Hippolyta, so I think it's kind of important. Again, even though these characters are pretty much immortal, I think it would help to get someone who is of that age, um, of the age of the Hippolytas that I picked. So I think Halle Berry could definitely be a really good Philippus.
That's a
Again,
Marvel
she's done
crossover.
yes. Again, another actress who was in a shitty DC movie who deserves redemption. So,
Hey,
I think that
she
works.
won a Razzie for it, and she was very excited to accept the award. She actually showed up
Yeah,
to
she
she
did.
took that in stride, yes.
And she was like, sorry. It was really funny. I forget what she said exactly, but yeah, I think she again deserves that DC redemption. I think she is extremely talented, and I think,
Yeah. I mean,
and
and speaking of aging like fine wine, that's
yes,
I think
yes,
the
and
definition of aging like fine wine is Halle
let's
Berry.
not forget
So,
that
yeah.
scene at Swordfish. I mean, come on now. Anyway, so I think again has done a lot of great action. She was Storm, so like again, she has the action, she has the comic book side, both good and bad, and then she has the talent. I mean,
They
she
were
was
gonna give her
recently
a John Wick spinoff. I'm sorry, I'm getting distracted now by the pictures.
yeah,
That
no,
might
I
still be
mean,
happening.
Halle Berry's very distracting, so,
Uh, sorry, yeah.
so again, she's been in something recently, has held her own in something recently, so again, can someone who can do, like, that action proper, but someone you can definitely believe is an Amazon, and someone who's, like,
Yeah, I would believe
older
that.
in the eyes of Hollywood, so I think, she could definitely pull that off, and I think she would be fantastic. So she deserves some DC redemption just like Uma Thurman. So that's pretty much the best casting decision I have, but I wanted some, others that could be good. However, the problem I have with them personally is that they're on the younger side. So the relationship they have with Hippolyta, since they are lovers in the comics, might be seen as a little weird because I know a lot of people get kind of caught up in like age discrepancies in terms of like, oh, they're 20 years apart. That's kind of gross and weird. So I
I
don't
don't
know.
think that's I think there's less of a stigma around that these days, especially when you're telling a fictional story where all
Sir
of these
Leonardo
actors.
DiCaprio.
I mean, well, right, but, like, I'm just saying, like, in as far as, like, a fictional
Yes.
world that you're trying to tell a story for,
Yeah.
um, like, it's you can like, these all of these characters may be thousands of years old, like, that's what you're meant to
Yeah.
believe, so in that case, yeah, who's to say, like, if one of them looks slightly older
Of
than the other? I
course,
mean, I
yeah.
think they can pull it off, yeah.
I mean, all of them, all of the women I chose are like
Although
are
I will
beautiful
say,
and age like fine wine if the older ones. So like,
like, I will say this, Lucy Lawless and Halle Berry is a combination that does, you
that would
know,
that if the
spring the imagination, if you know what I
if
mean.
the
Uh,
slang
yeah,
term power couple was invented for anybody, it would be that.
that would be a power couple, yes,
That would be the
definitely.
ultimate greatest power couple. But
You could
I still
sell the show on just those 2 characters alone. You put
you
them on a
could sell the
poster.
show them going that full Game of Thrones route. I'm just saying.
Well,
Like I'm
okay.
thinking of the gross
I'm
part, but like, hey,
You said it, not me, because 'cause I'm just that's okay.
you said the Game of Thrones thing before,
I
so don't fucking
well,
turn this around
okay.
on me.
Fair enough, fair enough. I mean,
I'm just going by what you said. This is you're gonna have to cut this out. Like, this is getting disgusting. Anyway, I'm sorry. I apologize to the people watching. I'm sorry. Anyway,
I mean, dude, you had some far worse language describing Warner Brothers not too long ago about their decisions regarding Batman Beyond.
okay, that's fair. But like,
So
anyway, so I have 2 more actresses. The
Mhm,
first one I have, she is a current Marvel actress, unfortunately, so it's probably
yeah,
unlikely she would join DC. But Lashana Lynch, another James Bond actress, playing the
veteran. She was the new
replacement of
double O
Wilson.
Seven.
Yes, and everyone
In
got their panties in a twist, even though she wasn't James Bond. So fucking calm
She
down.
wasn't. I mean, she was just the new 007 because
Yeah,
James Bond was retired for the 4th time. So, like, you might
yeah.
as well pass on the title. So it's
Exactly. So Lashana Lynch, again, she's a little bit younger, so people might again, I don't know what people get up in arms with these days. It all seems like a it all fucking seems like a, you know,
yeah.
whatever it
I
is.
mean,
I don't
she's
know
in
what
that new Bob Marley movie.
yeah,
Great. She just looks great. I mean, the great movie. She's also binary. She wasn't obviously in the Doctor Strange. She was in that version of the Marvel, that timeline, whatever. But now we've seen her as like a version of Captain Marvel as binary
yeah,
in the Marvels. So
yeah.
how long that lasts, we don't know. Maybe that's just like a couple of scenes in the next movie, and then
Who
they're
knows?
off
But
that character too.
maybe she
So
has a contract. I don't know. But I
yeah,
think, again, she has the action part, she has the blockbuster part, she has the beauty
yeah.
part, and she
I
has
mean,
the
look at the
action.
Woman King. That's a great example of she. If you want to look for the visuals, if you want to like, okay, I wonder what that would look like. Her in a Paradise Lost show. Just watch the Woman King. I think right there.
Absolutely.
So
I think, but yeah, with Viola Davis, who is Amanda Waller, so
Amanda
that
Waller.
works.
Mhm.
So yeah, and so yeah, I think she could do it. She is again is younger, so I don't know if like people would be weirded out by that, but I think it should be fine. I think it should be fine. Personally, I would go for Halle Berry because I just think she just has so much experience, and I feel like that would fit in better with the character. Like who's in my head? I don't know even know if they're gonna fucking use her, so who knows? But Lashana Lynch, she is incredibly talented. She's getting just kinda getting more and more and more popular, again, with being, like being in Marvel projects, being in,
On the
James
rise.
Bond, being
Yes,
in, all this other stuff, like, she's becoming, like if she isn't already, she's becoming a household name. She probably would be
absolutely.
is at this point, like, I
Yeah,
feel like
higher, further, faster. Right? Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, honestly, she should have been Captain Marvel, but that's just my
I
opinion.
yeah, I mean, she is in that X-Men timeline in the MCU, like, where we see
Yeah, but I mean,
the
like,
Kelsey Grammer Beast,
she has
she's
more
binary.
She has more acting range than Brie Larson. She should have been Captain Marvel. but that's beside the
Maybe
point.
maybe
Anyway,
she'll stick around. I mean, maybe they'll, like, retcon that somehow. Maybe there's, like, a crisis-like event that MCU is
Secret Wars,
hoping to.
if they
That
still have that on the
that's
table.
exactly could be how.
Um,
Yeah, I could see
but
it.
yeah, because I mean, I did hear that they were like with Secret Wars, they were gonna like retcon events that like X-Men, the Marvel, the
Like, the
MCU,
history of the
and
MCU, right.
Fantastic Four would all combine into one.
Yeah, yeah,
So
that's
that's what I heard,
I
that
could
they
see
were gonna
that.
crisis it essentially. But anyway,
They
so
would
for the
have to, I
final
mean, how else can you make it work? So
so for the final actress I have, probably I think Halle Berry and Lashana Lynch would be better. I think again, I said Halle Berry would probably be the best, but I think Anna Diop could also be really good. Again, she has, the comic book prowess. She was in Titans, which
DC
wasn't
veteran.
good. Again, DC Redemption. So,
I mean, I thought the first season was very interesting. Also, when I saw the trailers and promos, she always looked like they went in a very different direction for Starfire than what we see in the comics, and I thought they made a fantastic decision bringing her in, and
yeah,
she
I just think she
pulled
was a
off a
little too
very good
old,
iteration
in
of the
my
character.
opinion. I think they should have gone with someone a little bit younger. But
I
now
mean,
I
fair
think,
enough. Okay. Yeah, considering the
Philippa
other
should be
casting
older,
decisions.
ironically.
Yeah,
But yeah, that's just me. Again, she is incredibly talented. She has the range. She, again, she was in Titans, so she has, comic
yeah.
book history. And I don't know. I even though I wasn't a huge. I mean, again, I liked the first season of Titans, and then it just went downhill real fucking quickly. And it didn't
You could
help
say
that
that
she looked,
again.
and then didn't help. She looked like a hooker throughout most of season one, but that's beside the point.
Yeah, fair enough,
But
fair
yeah,
enough.
I think she was still good in the show. Like, I wasn't a total fan of the Starfire they went with because, again, I just find that the comic version is just more interesting. However,
Yeah.
I do think that for the Starfire that they did was still really good, and I still really liked how she did it. So like if I completely ignore the fact of I believe Starfire should be, this interpretation by this actress was great. So, awesome. I think again, she might be seen as quote unquote a little bit too young for, the Hippolytas I have in mind, but hey, Hippolyta, whoever they choose might be younger. So then Anna Diop would be perfect. So, you know, I think she could do it. I think she'd be really talented. But again, Halle Berry would probably be my favorite, but all three of them really talented, even if the two are a little bit younger than who I would go for, but all of them are great. So again, I feel like the only definite one would probably be Hippolyta. I would like to see Nubia. I would like to see Artemis done really well. The others are like, sure. But yeah, I would like to see all these characters because they're all like big, you know, Amazon characters, and I feel like with James Gunn being like, I am a huge fan of these versions of Superman, so I feel like he's like so aware of the comics, and I feel like he's so aware of what the fans want, and I feel like fans want to see these characters not even just done right, but just done. N- the
No, I
most
agree with
newbie
you.
the most
Yeah.
Nubia has gotten in terms of a live action appearance was a background character in the Kathy Lee Crosby TV Wonder Woman movie. So, the character deserves something now. So, Artemis got like a character with no lines in the background that nobody remembers. I didn't even remember her until you pulled the picture up. And then Philippus, I think she had a couple lines, so that's, someone who did get a good decent amount of screen time, so that's pretty good. Um, but yeah, I think all the actresses I picked, ranging from depending on what they're good at, obviously if you are gonna go with a more action-oriented show, I don't know how you would do that because, again, they're mostly kinda just stuck on the island, not really doing anything. They could, like, play with gods and, like, titans maybe, and, like, the various villains of mythology, but I feel like it would mostly be a political drama. And I feel like all the actors I chose,
Yeah,
yes, that action, but also could do that sort of like political drama
right.
aspect as well. So we'll just have to see, obviously. But I wanted to talk about Paradise Lost because we really haven't gotten anything. So, and I feel like it deserves a little love, even though we haven't seen a
Yeah, I
lot.
mean, the best we've gotten is, like, Rumors, which is,
Yeah,
like, Elizabeth Debicki playing Wonder Woman potentially, and Diana
Yeah.
Prince showing up in Paradise Lost, which would be great to see. I mean, I personally think Elizabeth Debicki would be a great pick, but then also seeing these other characters like we've been talking about, like you see Antiope, Philippus, Artemis. I mean, these are all mythological names that also have a great history in the world of DC Comics, and I would love to see like Nubia is a character that just feels like she could get her own spin-off. Like she's got the comic book pedigree, and if you cast her right and you play those cards right, Nubia could have her own like standalone franchise.
Mhm.
And she could even join a version of the Justice League potentially, like right, like because she's basically Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
Just another iteration of Wonder Woman. And especially there's an Injustice timeline. There's versions of the comics where she is Wonder Woman essentially.
Yeah.
So like I think I
I know
have a
she's
picture of that
Wonder Woman
up.
of Earth 23, where Calvin Ellis is Superman.
Yep.
Um, that might be this world. I don't know. I didn't read that. I think that was part of Infinite Crisis, if I remember correctly. Um, but
Yeah.
yeah, she I think could. Uh, I think she would definitely be a fan favorite character very quickly. She's just I don't know.
Yeah.
From what little I know about her, she seems pretty awesome. So
I mean, and then you look at Connie Nielsen and wow, why am I forgetting her name right now in the
Robin
movie?
Wright.
Connie Nielsen, Robin Wright, Connie Nielsen, Robin Wright. You've got two incredible actresses who've already played Antiope and Hippolyta. The
And
pedigree is
hey,
there. You've got something to build on.
they could
Uh,
pick someone who you never would think of, like Jenny from Forrest Gump playing a hard, badass Amazonian general. Never would have imagined that. So they could definitely pick someone out of
yeah.
left field and then surprise everybody. So,
Mhm.
definitely.
Yeah,
I would
no, I
agree
think
with you.
these are great picks. I mean, these kind of fan castings are always wonderful because you get to kind of like just let your imagination run wild. Like for example, the Halle Berry and Lucy Lawless combination, I think, would be fantastic. You put in somebody like a Regina King or a Zoe Saldana or even like a Naomi Harris, and you know, you've got a top tier cast, then you still have room to add in a Karen Gillan or a Jessica Chastain. I mean, A-listers on A-listers. Evan Rachel Wood, incredibly talented. And you bring in just an absolute like classic herself and a Uma Thurman, Kill Bill, of course, or Rachel Weisz. She's already done comic book work before. It just you can't miss. Like, the names you have put together here, I hope. I mean, we always say this. I'm like, "Hey, maybe James Gunn randomly comes across this video and says, 'You know what? There's a couple of good picks here.'" And maybe
Yeah.
even without watching this video, he's probably already like, if he has
Yeah.
given any thought to it, maybe some of these names have already been, but they're tacked onto a idea or a mood board somewhere, and they might be thinking about it. I'm looking forward to what Paradise Lost becomes. I mean, the one thing that does concern me is there's not been any updates beyond just the rumors, like we were talking about the Elizabeth Debicki rumor playing Diana Prince Wonder Woman. But outside of that, like we don't know who the showrunners is as of yet. We don't know, who any of the actual cast will be. Like whether they will even have these characters that we were casting. They most likely will because those are some of the most recognizable, memorable characters from the world of Wonder Woman. But hopefully, we'll get some updates. I know James Gunn mentioned recently that there'll be more DC projects going into production than just Creature Commandos, which is already in production, and now Superman Legacy is also in production. Of course, Lanterns already has a showrunner, so that's more likely to go into production sooner. Peacemaker is already probably being prepped for its new season. Once James Gunn finishes Superman Legacy, he's going to
Yeah.
jump into that next year. So I'm hoping that, Paradise Lost doesn't become one of those shows, like, where we're still waiting for it in a couple of years and we still haven't heard much. Like, I'd like, get the ball rolling, Like, you've got a very solid premise, and I bet you that when they put that premise together, they might have already had some ideas, or they may already have people attached to this, it's just not made public yet. So I hope that that's the case, and we do get some updates sooner than later. I mean, are you looking of all the shows that they have announced, which one is the one? Is Paradise Lost the one that you're most looking forward to, or is it one of the ones that you would even wanna watch considering you didn't watch
I
Game of
don't
Thrones?
know. The thing is, I really want to see Green Lanterns done right in live action.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, everybody does, right?
even
Like,
though I
it's
don't hate the Ryan Reynolds movie, I feel like there was a lot of missed
it
opportunities, and
was
I
it
just
was
feel like
decent. Yes.
it's better for a show because there's so much you can do. It's like
Mhm.
literally the entire universe is in the palm of your hands to do whatever the fuck you want. That's pretty
Right.
awesome. And then
Yeah.
and then Booster Gold would probably be my top 2 because, again, Booster Gold is just such a fucking funny character, and I feel like that's right up James Gunn's alley. So I feel like get, like, a good again, we'll do that in the future, but get, like, a really good actor, like, someone who's, like, really charismatic, but really funny, um, to really do that, and I think that would be really awesome. Like, get
Yeah.
again, gotta get that character really right, though, and I
Yeah,
feel
and you
like
got Shola Marduenia already as Blue Beetle, so,
yeah,
I'm
and
sure
I
he
would
will
love to
be a
see
part of
Ted
the
Cord. We
show.
wanna see Ted Cord too,
Yes.
so
Make it Jason Sudeikis, why not? Like, I think that would be a good fit.
shh, don't spoil my future
Those
picks.
Well, I don't think it's any secret. I think a lot of people would like to see that happen.
I mean, he was
Uh,
rumored for it, so,
he
that's
was,
why
exactly, yeah. Well, okay, so Paradise Lost for me, I mean, I will say Paradise Lost is one of the shows I'm most looking forward to, not because it's maybe necessarily gonna be the best of the bunch, it may be or it may not be. And I wasn't the biggest fan of Game of Thrones, but, I can respect by the time the show went off the air, it is one of the if not the biggest TV show of all time. There's no denying that whatsoever, and now House of the Dragon is, following up in its footstep, breaking some of the records Game of Thrones set. So, if this show is gonna be in the vein of a Game of Thrones, then Paradise Lost intrigues me because you've got that DC, legacy, and you've got that heritage to build upon. And this will, even if it takes place really well in the past, it will somehow, I bet you, connect to the events of the DCU in the present day. And I have a feeling in this DCU we're gonna be getting some time travel plots. So, not just to undo mistakes, but maybe like time travel in a more creative plot device, whether they're connecting characters across time or something like that.
as
And
long
to
as
that
it's not
end,
The Flash, they should be fine.
right, right, yeah, as long as yeah, I mean, but like I'm thinking more like maybe like a Vandal Savage based story might be like how they can go about it. There's other ways, right? Like there's multiple
I
characters in the world of
the
DC.
problem with Vandal Savage, though, it might be ripping off Legends of Tomorrow a little bit too much, so there is
I see
that.
that, but like like ripping off would be a compliment to Legends of Tomorrow. And
Yeah,
there's
but it's
not
like, "Oh, Legends of Tomorrow already did that, let's try to do something original,
I
more
I hear
creative
you. I do.
than
Okay,
ripping off
fair
the
enough.
CW show."
Yes. Well, ripping off is one thing, like taking inspiration is another. But anyway, the point is
Yeah,
Paradise Lost to me has the most potential to become like, to transcend the genre of the comic book superhero movies and just the comic book genre as a whole, where you could see people tuning into the show. I mean, Peacemaker did that in a way. Peacemaker was the biggest show in the world when it was airing. And Paradise Lost, I think, can really do that because whereas Green Lantern, although I will say this that James Gunn, Peter Safran, their intent is each of these shows kind of stands in its own little piece of property on the larger DCU landscape where you want to get that buddy cop kind of a they described it as like a lethal weapon times like in space. That was
yeah,
what Lanterns, which I'm like, okay, take
gimme.
my money. Like, just right now, I can totally watch that. That would be fantastic. And so, like much like that, Paradise Lost, if it's the DC version of Game of Thrones, then yes, that there's a lot of potential. So that's why I'm really excited for it. But yeah, guys, let us know in the comments what you think. Is this a show that you were excited to see? How soon would you want to see it? I mean, we have,
Yeah.
I think the fan castings we have may not be that far off the mark. Honestly, they may not be that far off the mark with some of these characters that
Lucy
they may be bringing in.
Lawless. Do it.
Yeah,
I
like
wanna see it.
it's people have
We
been
wanna see
calling
her
for her to
she would be
she's Xena's
upgraded
warrior
she
princess.
would be upgraded from warrior princess to warrior queen.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
exactly. Exactly. Hey, yeah, this has been a very fun episode to do for sure. And guys, let us know in the comments what you think. Of course, these are some great characters and some great actresses who we'd love to see play those characters. Paradise Lost, whether it includes Diana Prince, Wonder Woman or not, would be a
Mhm.
great show regardless. I mean, they are ways to screw about just about anything up. And sure, making any kind of movies or TV show, it's a miracle because of just how much collaboration has to happen with so many people. But as long as you're put your faith and trust in James Gunn and Peter Safran, so far they haven't really, at least of what we are aware of, taken the step in the wrong direction. So hopefully Paradise Lost will be just as good as advertised. So let us know what you think about that. Leave your comments down below. Of course, like and subscribe. That does help us out. That way you can also come back here Monday through Friday. We're doing DC Daily topics. We're talking about Batman Beyond. Like that seems to be an ongoing theme these days. Superman Legacy. Anytime there's an update, you can come back here for the occasional rant. You'll be reviewing the Creature Commandos when it comes out, the Penguin, Joker Folie à Deux. Those are all things that are on the dock for this year, of course. Then next year, you've got so much more Batman Part Two, including that. And as you know, as anytime there's any breaking news, come back here and check. We'll talk about it. We'll break it down. We'll try to gain some insight into what that news means for something like a Superman Legacy. So until next time, it's been all it's been a great Fancast Friday. We've been doing this for a few weeks. Let us know in the comments if you think we should continue doing these. I mean, there's only so many projects that we can cover as of right now, but then I'm sure once we run out of the ones that are announced, we will get into the ones that we would like to see, and then that will be really fun. But until that happens, guys, thanks again for joining us on DCU Daily. We'll see you back here next week with more updates. John, it's been a pleasure as always, and we'll be back here on DCU Daily soon enough. And guys, go check out the other episodes. John had a really good rant on about David Zaslav, Warner Brothers, and a few other concepts that don't necessarily go together. But yeah, Jurassic League, that's the one. If you're looking for the thumbnail, it says Jurassic League on top, but we really just talked about Batman Beyond. Go check that out and then come back here next week. We'll be talking. I'm sure there'll be more Batman Beyond related content. Until next time, it's been fun. We'll see you on the next one.